Hello and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This midweek episode, we'll be going over a few of the forum posts and be looking at sort of what people are hating right now and people's kind of concerns about the war within, as well as some other stupid stuff that is said on these forums. Now, this one might be a bit shorter. I don't really know. It very much depends on how long these forum posts go on for and how much I want to discuss. It's purely because I am really not doing great at the moment. So I'm really sorry in advance and beforehand, but I'll try and do my best to keep it going for you guys. But if it's a bit shorter, I do apologise. And hopefully the next episode will be the usual longer sort of 30-minute ones that we want to achieve each and every week. So, what we're going to start with is utterly disappointed for one more time. Okay, now this guy seems like a very cheery fella, and we'll get started with what he says. Well, Blizzard have proven again for one more time that bad habits never change. It's like politics. We must take for granted that, and then he lists these three things. Will never be heard, even if we prove mathematically that you're mistaken. We have been heard with many topics before. The biggest one that I can remember being heard about is being alt-friendly. In Shadowlands, the game was not alt-friendly at all, and they started to make adjustments to that at the end of Shadowlands, going into Dragonflight, and it has happened with the War Within as well, with the Warband XP boost, the gearing systems and stuff like that. So we have been heard. There are many other things that we've been heard about, but you might not necessarily see them implemented and be like, okay, this is like the biggest one that, you guys have been discussing, so we've rectified it for you. And I mean, the biggest one actually ever is WoW Classic. People wanted WoW Classic back in 2016, 17, 18, and it got announced, and it was released in 2019. And, WoW Classic to this moment is currently in a stage of cataclysm where not a lot of people are playing it actively and sort of raid logging because it's in a stalemate. So you see how that's gotten to us already. Now, obviously, you can argue that Cataclysm isn't everyone's favourite expansion, but everything happens and people slowly get bored of it. I think Classic was a great idea. I think Classic Era, having them servers, is a fantastic idea as well. I think it's amazing that that is still somewhat alive to this day. But we are heard throughout the community. Obviously, smaller things don't get picked up on as much. We'll never get a reply to our topics, even if they are polite and within your rules and regulations. Yes, because simply stating, I go through all of the forums and within 2 hours span, there's probably 10, 15, 20, 10 to 20, I'd say, forum posts within a certain section. That's general World of Warcraft, yeah? You have about 50 different sections, I would say. So you're telling me that they should reply to every single one of these, even though some of them are a bit ridiculous. Like this one, why would they reply to it? Because you're complaining. Right, that's all you're going to be doing. You're going to be complaining. I haven't even read this, and I know that all of it is going to be just bitching and complaining. So they're not going to reply to it, are they? It is what it is. The third one, you never intend to make the classes balanced, and you seem to have constant hate for some classes, like Retribution Paladins. Okay, I guess you guys know what class this guy plays now. So, Retribution Paladins got a massive overhaul in Season 1 of Dragonflight. They were one of the best classes in the game, okay? I'm talking from a PvP standpoint. PvE, no idea. PvE is a completely different game to PvP. But I went back, actually this was yesterday as of recording, I went back through my VODs on Twitch, and one of my very first arena VODs is at the start of Dragonflight season, or at the end of Dragonflight season 1, and at the start of it, it's only a couple hours VOD, but we did arenas, and at the start it was 6 games back to back with a Retribution Paladin. Okay, how crazy is that? That isn't healthy for the game at all. But you say that they're not good, so what do you mean? Because Retribution Paladins are also getting a sort of talent rework in 11.0.5. So they are constantly looking at changing the balance of the game. And the thing is, it's an MMO. Nothing will ever be balanced. Everything will be... There's something that is better than something else. And that's because they have to use different spells for certain classes, for certain specs and stuff, and it's tough to balance something. So balance Cyclone, for example, a 6-second CD where they can't be healed, they can't be damaged, and, they just sort of sit there, like, doing nothing. Balance that with a Hammer of Justice where the person is stunned, but the stun is dispellable. Now, don't get me wrong, Cyclone's dispellable with Mass Dispel, but, for simplicity's sake, they are stunned, but they can be damaged and can be healed. How do you balance them two things? Okay. Now, the obvious answer is you make Cyclone a stun. Okay. Then what? Then suddenly Cyclone's a 6-second stun and Hammer of Justice a 5-second stun, which is great. But Hammer of Justice is a 30-second cooldown. Cyclone has no cooldown. So again, how do you balance it? So eventually you're going to get to a point where every spell is the exact same. So Cyclone is now a 5-second stun with a 30-second cooldown, same with Hammer of Justice. But what about Stormbolt? Stormbolt's only a 3-second stun with like a 30-second cooldown. Okay, so now Hammer of Justice and Cyclone are 3 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. You see where I'm going with this? Every ability will be the exact same ability, but just a different name and look. So you can't balance it. It's almost impossible to do, and it's ridiculous to even think that you can balance an MMO. The best version of MMOs are constant balance patches coming out that change the meta of the game. Now, the meta could be it's all melee dominated, it's all caster dominated. That's fine for like a month or so. But you have to constantly change it, because otherwise it will get stale, it will get boring, people will get pissed off, and people will leave. So if you're changing it constantly, and someone else's class is now the best class in the game, they have their month of enjoyment, that kind of thing. Now, it's not going to be fun getting nerfed, but at the same time, you can still understand why you're getting nerfed, that kind of deal. And that's why Retribution Paladins did get nerfed. They were very good. They were unkillable. They were so strong. Like, they were hitting me for a third of my health when they got their rework. And I was fully conquest geared and all of that, but they were hitting me with one ability, like, for a third of my health. How is that fair? Is that a thing? That shouldn't be a thing, right? But yeah, anyways, let's carry on. You remind me why I quit the game 8 years ago. He quit 8 years ago. And he's having a complaint about something that's recent? That makes no sense. And what a great mistake I made when I started it at the end of Dragonflight, only because a friend told me that Retribution Paladin was decent. Yes, at the end of Dragonflight, they were still decent. But Season 1 of Dragonflight, they were the best class in the game. They easily were. Not S tier, but near A. But yet again, you wanted to ruin even a thing you fixed. They didn't fix Paladins. Well, they did, actually. They were in a fixed state when you joined, okay? They were in a broken state when you weren't playing the game. So you're not going to comment on that, are you? Now, let me get one thing straight. People who care about what tier their class is in, need to sort out their heads in some way, because yes, it's fun being a top tier class. It always will be. All right, you're doing the most damage, you're doing the most healing, CC, whatever you might be doing or using your class for. But you play WoW for the fantasy of it, okay? I play Boomkin because I enjoy the class. I love the class fantasy of it. I love the treants, I love the nature spells, I love the, Elune stuff, I love Fury of Elune, Full Moons, all of that stuff. I don't care if I'm S tier or if I'm F tier, okay? Now, recently, I'm sort of around a B tier, maybe A tier, okay? Which is nice, I like that. Towards the end of Dragonflight, I was a very much S tier class in terms of PvP. Again, I really enjoyed that. But historically, Boomkin has been very bad. In expansions, it historically has not had the greatest track record. But I don't care about that. I enjoy playing the game and the class as it is. because I just enjoy the class itself. Now, people need to realize it's not about, oh my god, my class is awful, so I'm going to stop playing. It's absolutely ridiculous. He carries on, and here I ask why. Why do you keep disregarding all of your paying customers? He's not a paying customer. I'm not talking about the ones that say, oh, I can not one-shot healers in PvP, fix it please. Firstly, you don't ever go for a healer in PvP. Well, I say ever. You don't usually go after a healer in PvP, not unless you're a melee cleave trying to run down a resto shaman or something along them lines. But you're meant to CC the healer. I think that's his, 1k mentality probably. Or damn you Blizzard, why damn you Blizzard, why I can't always be top of DPS charts. Yeah, I think that's just a missay there. But the ones that prove to you that their classes are not competitive and raids prefer other classes and prove their point based on logs and class metrics, but still you don't care and you do your things based on no logic at all. Okay, they do go off the stats. So if you look back towards Shadowlands, okay, Shadowlands, I think Destro locks were very, very strong in PvE because all they did was sit there and press Rain of Fire. Okay, they nerfed this playstyle and have tried to branch out into other playstyles of it. And Destro lock isn't as strong anymore. It's still in a decent place for PvE, don't get me wrong. I think if you're looking at in terms of balance, you're looking at the most balanced sort of patches ever in Dragonflight and in the War Within. Because historically, let's go all the way back to Classic, when you were playing apparently, because you quit this game 8 years ago, 2016, so I have no sort of timescale on when you were playing, but let's say you played back in 2004. You played a mage, okay? You are S tier for everything, PvE, PvP, whatever. Let's say you played a balanced druid. You are like dog shit tier in PvE and PvP, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, PvP you can one-shot things with Starfire if you have the gear, but you are awful. You are not the best tier class in the game, but people enjoyed it still because they enjoyed the class. It's not about this S tier stuff. And you say, oh my god, like, it's not balanced. It's never been balanced. It never will be balanced. So where's your argument for it not being balanced 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago when you were playing? There isn't, because now that you've come back after 8 years, by the way, I don't even know what expansion that was. Oh god, 8 years was Legion. Yeah, 2016 is when Legion came out, and he stopped playing before Legion, okay? So he was Warlords of Draenor. Oh my god, this guy has not played Legion, not played BFA, not played, oh my god, what is it, Shadowlands, Dragonflight, and now he's come back the War Within. He's missed about 3 whole expansions, 4 most expansions. Like, it's ridiculous. You can't have these things when you've not seen the state of the balancing that is within the game. And this is constantly throughout its past as well. It has never been balanced. It will never be balanced. People need to accept this. But the balance will change with patches. Classes will get stronger or weaker. Therefore, they're not dominating as much. You will never balance a MMO. People need to realize this. Classes might be good, might be bad, but you just need to enjoy your class, okay? Yes, some things might be annoying. Yes, I am so depressed that DKs can root me for 10 years, grip me 20 times back, but I know that they'll get nerfed. I know that they will eventually. Something will happen and they'll get nerfed. Now, I know that there's ways that I can play around this as well in PvP, but it is one of them things, you just have to accept it. Some things change in a video game, and the fact that you're complaining about balance now, when you were playing in Warlords of Draenor, in Mists of Pandaria, Cataclysm, there were stuff that were broken back then. I'm going to take a sort of shot in the dark and say that he played Warlords of Draenor, Mists of Pandaria. Let's say these are the 2 expansions he played. Mists of Pandaria, Arms Warriors and Priests were just at one point super S tier. Okay, Arms Warriors especially. At one point, they were just skyrocketing through the roof. I bet he never complained at that time. I bet if he played a warrior, he would never have complained. One of them things. Because the thing is, with a Retribution Paladin, who's your best mate? A warrior. You queue, like, Ret Warrior in PvP. So, sadly, he's not going to be complaining about that sort of, broken state of warrior or whatever, is he? It's all very much dependent on the person and who they're playing, like, or their class, essentially, rather than just enjoy your class as it is, okay? Now, he carries on. Before I started WoW again, I played another MMO. I won't mention the name, that was very similar to WoW, but the DPS classes were perfectly balanced, and it was like a 3-month MMO, although the endgame content was kind of bad, and I was wondering how the hell a 3-month MMO has a better balance between classes than a 20-year one. Okay, if you don't want to say the MMO, you cannot be comparing the two, okay? Because I can say this, all right? I played, like, this is an example. I played the best MMO ever, okay? It was perfectly balanced. The end game was really good. The PvP was really good. And it reminded me of WoW because the end game was very, very good as well. The PvP was very good. And WoW is very balanced as well. I'm not going to name the MMO, but it was exactly like WoW and it was perfect. Like, how does that help an argument at all? It doesn't, because you're just thinking that I'm chatting absolute, like, nonsense, because you're not giving anyone any sort of comparable evidence to suggest that this MMO was very good. You're not giving it any evidence to suggest why it was perfectly balanced. You're giving no info, and you could have just easily made that up. It's absolutely ridiculous and ludicrous, and this person coming back after 8 years and played it for one season, a season that didn't get many patch updates, by the way, because they were working on the Wall Within and stuff, which is fair enough. Season 4 of Dragonflight was very scarce in terms of balance updates, I will give it that, and that's where it fell down quite a lot, but I'm hoping that they'll make it up in the Wall Within, which I think that they are doing so far, as there have been multiple balance changes already. Really, really good. Really happy with that. But yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. You can't come back after 8 years, play one of the longest sort of patches ever with no real class tuning and say, yep, it's not balanced, ridiculous. It's absolutely stupid. And to finish my wall of text, you decided to nerf Dawnlight, although we were not an S tier or A tier class. Please boost Templar Verdict, Judgment, and Blade of Justice damage to counterbalance the Dawnlight nerf to boost our single target that is bad for a Retribution Paladin to be wanted class in raids again. Okay. Firstly, Retribution Paladins, yes, it is boring single target. I will give it that. It is a very boring single target. But in PvP, they have historically been single target like damage dealers and still are. Their Templar's Verdict gives you Divine Arbiter proc, gives you Divine Storm proc, gives you the Dawnlight proc as well, stuff like that. All of this is passive. They want to nerf passive damage, okay? Passive damage is and shouldn't be in the game, in my honest opinion. If you look at Fury Warriors right now, a lot of their damage, or I say a lot, about 8% of their damage is coming from Slayer's Take, okay? This Slayer's Take has a random chance when you hit them with melee to proc Slayer's Take and just deal damage. How is that okay? That shouldn't be okay. That's like my Moonfire randomly procking just a big hit, like 8% of my damage. That is... Okay, so for Moonkins, if you have Sunfire and Moonfire on them, when they tick, they have a chance of calling down a Shooting Star. Okay, the Shooting Star gives Astral Power, that's its main objective, and does a tiny bit of damage. Now, the Shooting Star, I would say, does 1 to 2% of my damage in total. What if I upped that by 6 or 7%? What if it does 8% of my damage all of a sudden? Suddenly, my dot damage is really good. Is that a thing? Should that be a thing? Should passive damage like that be a thing? No, it shouldn't. Passive things should be for rage generation or astral generation or energy regen or fury generation, runic power, all of that stuff. The stuff that allows you to press your abilities, I don't think personally it should be ones that do damage. That's my own opinion, and obviously people can have different opinions on that. But yes, stuff needs to get nerfed. If you look at the damage Dawnlight was doing in comparison to everything else Paladins were doing, then you'll realise that it's like 17% of your damage, or whatever it might be. It's in the high sort of teens and early 20s sort of damage, whereas everything else is in the 10%, 9%, 8%, that sort of thing. And it shouldn't be like that. If you look at Athlocks right now, I think Athlock is a very good example of what a class should be. Now, don't get me wrong, they are still doing a ludicrous amount of damage, more than they should be. But if you look at the distribution of damage and how it's dealt, that's what I would want from a DPS. So you've got a lot of damage from your Corruption, Unstable Affliction, your Shadow Bolt, your Malefic Rapture, your Curse of Agony. You've got all of these doing anywhere between 5 to 10% of your damage. There is no sort of outlier where it comes to damage-wise, especially in PvP at the very least. Now, Nightfall and Shadowbolt procs are very, very good, don't get me wrong, and do need to be nerfed. All right, I've not tested the nerfs yet because I'm EU, so I wouldn't have played the game yet, when the Affliction lock nerfs go through, but I think that it's a very good distribution of damage, and I think that a lot of things should be that way, but I don't think it should be doing that much damage, if that makes sense. So the distribution, if it's between 10 abilities, that's fine. They all do sort of 10% of your damage each. That makes up 100% of your damage. Fine. If you have something that is doing 30% of your damage, okay, we'll go really extreme here, 30 to 40% of your damage, 50% even, okay? We'll go 50% because I know a class that does 50% of the damage from one ability. And everything else is 10%, okay? That shouldn't be a thing. That shouldn't be a thing at all. So, evokers, for example, what is it? Damage evokers, devastation, that's the word. Their damage comes from disintegrate. That's it. 50% of their damage, disintegrate. They don't have much damage in fire breath or eternity surge because these things have cooldowns. Now, the disintegrate procs eternity surge. You don't really want to be casting Living Flame because it's not useful. Not useful until it's procced and, it has increased damage and, the sort of stats or the ramping that these spells can get now. But it's absolutely ludicrous to think that one class, its damage comes from 50% of its class rather than, Athlock that has 10% of its damage from 10 spells. That is more balanced, in my honest opinion, than a dragon. And Retribution Paladin is more balanced now than what it was back in Dragonflight Season 1. Because they still have freedom. Do not underestimate how good freedom is right now. In a expansion, and an early part of the expansion, where Death Knights are ruling, where slows are ruling PvP, okay? Chains of Ice, constantly from the Horsemen, grips, constant stuff that is keeping you locked down. Do not underestimate a freedom. Do not underestimate a Blessing of Sanctity, or Sanctify. Blessing of Sank. I'm just going to call it Sank. I've never said the actual name of it, but I know it's Blessing of Sank. Bubble, Bop, just off heals with Word of Glory. Do not underestimate these things. But because you can't deal damage or kill a healer in PvP, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, Jesus Christ, it's absolutely ridiculous, that you think that your class is bad. You know what? Please do, unsubscribe. Genuinely. If you are complaining that it's unbalanced right now, then you need to look at the history of World of Warcraft. It's always been unbalanced, but it is in its best state that it has ever been since Classic. Classic has been a shit show of unbalanced stuff. So has TBC, so has Wrath, so has Cataclysm, Mists of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, BFA, Shadowlands. Dragonflight was decent, but there were still outliers. Boomkin and Rogue were dominant for the past, couple seasons of Dragonflight. It's absolutely crazy. At one point in Shadowlands, it was double outlaw rogue at the end of Shadowlands. How is that balanced? It isn't. But like, it's absolutely crazy. It's an MMO. Nothing will ever be balanced. Nothing. You need to get that into your head. Please just enjoy the classes that you play. Don't worry about this S tier, this A tier, this B tier. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the classes you play. Don't worry about playing the flavor of the month. Enjoy classes you play, and you will find more happiness in the game itself. That's all I'm going to say. Okay? I really do need to end it here. I'm dying right now. But I'm hoping that this has enlightened you guys a bit. And I would like to hope that you guys sort of take what you can from this and just enjoy playing the game rather than worrying about this, oh my god, my class is an S tier, A tier, like this sort of elite gamer sort of stuff, you know, all of that shit. Please enjoy the game. Like, it is a game at the end of the day. It needs to be enjoyed in whatever way you can. I get some things will be frustrating, but things will change during the game. Like, things will get patched, things will get nerfed, buffed, etc. Just enjoy the game as it is, because it will never be the same as it was, like, in a couple weeks' time, essentially. All right? So, with all that being said, thank you all very much for listening. Do check out all of the socials and stuff down below. Constant stuff happening over there. As well as an Etsy shop. Constant stuff is going up there right now. Please do check it out. It would be really appreciated, even if you guys had a look at it. All of it is 3D printed, and multiple things are being added constantly on the daily. So, thank you all very much once again, and go with valor, friend. Goodbye all.